Now here is a large, quite large Disney collectible. It's a sculpture of Scrooge McDuck, obviously. I think my favorite character from all of Disney-dom. This thing is like 3 feet high. I can only imagine how much it weighs, but I was happy to see it in person, so I thought I'd make a video about it. And the artist who invented Scrooge McDuck and who did the art that the sculpture was then modeled after is the legendary Carl Barks from Disney, of course, who's signed it here, as you can see. And here he is. He had a pretty interesting life. Well, he lived from 1901 to the year 2000. Before he settled into what he was apparently, put on Earth to do, he did a lot of different things. He grew up on a farm and he worked later as a farmer, woodcutter, mule driver, cowboy, and finally, somewhat appropriately, printer. He was a big creator on the Disney comics front, and those comics back in the day were a big deal. I think they inspired a lot of budding creators. George Lucas writes the dedication for a collection of Scrooge McDuck comics that I have. Somebody who seemed quite knowledgeable said that his Scrooge McDuck works were really popular in Europe, and so popular they had this thing where they pretended it wasn't an American who made them. Here's the collection I was talking about. Had a great time reading that to my children. Just had to reach over to the bookshelf and grab it for this video. Of course, you have to get panels of Scrooge diving into his money bin. Barks's talent is in evidence in these large panels that he does like this. And check this one out as well. So you get these big showpieces throughout his comics. It's not just, Scrooge McDuck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Donald running around. He himself had been greatly influenced by comics as a kid, and that's what influenced him to draw, which was his favorite hobby. And it's easy to forget in kind of that old world lifestyle that he lived. I mean, he really did. Might as well have been in the middle of the 19th century. Comics for like visual children's entertainment. That was it, in a way, because there was no TV, and seeing a movie was really rare. And speaking of these comics, as you can see here in this image, they were often traveling to exotic parts of the world and exploring and going through ruins, that kind of thing. I might be the first person to wonder this, out loud anyway, but would we have Indiana Jones if it wasn't for Scrooge McDuck? I know Lucas had other influences, including a real-world kind of swashbuckling archaeologist, but I think that's a legitimate question. Anyway, let's go back to the sculpture. I might make a future video focusing on that question. Yeah, so you can see the Eisenhower coin here. I like how they use actual currency. And the colors look great. They're muted, but they look great. Obviously a purposeful, choice. I like how his glasses just magically rest on his bill. Notice there's nothing, taking them back to hang on his quote-unquote ears or whatever. In this sculpture, he's sitting on a pile of money. What a lasting kind of image, him sitting on it, hoarding it, playing with it, all that, swimming through it. Notice there's some diamonds mixed in with the coins. But yeah, it made a real lasting impression on pop culture, right? As an art professor pointed out a long time ago in a class I was in, a sculpture needs to be enjoyed in, 3 dimensions. You need to move around, not just stand in front of it. You can see what amounts to his shoes. Always got a kick out of that. Scrooge McDuck is well-heeled, even though his shoes don't actually have heels. There's me in the reflection. Of course, I'm the only person that stops down in a lobby to make a video out of something like this. Great detail on the hand and fingers. His telltale cane, which is often his weapon. I'm sure Barks had no idea that there are actual martial arts that specialize in the cane. And I'd just like to go back to how enduring this character has been. He had this TV show from, what was that, the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And then, of course, the current, or very recent, Disney show, and still having international adventures. The template has not changed that much. Scrooge McDuck is interesting because he's definitely like he's a capitalist idol in a way, right? He loves wealth, he loves hoarding it. The stories, old and modern, often poke fun at him for kind of being addicted to money in that way. But then he was also this model for, starting with nothing and building a fortune, and that's something that Carl Barks thought was important. And we're done. There you go, a neat sculpture of an American original of a character that was created by an American original, Carl Barks. Thanks.